Love it or hate it, we've all experienced this tidal wave of crime content in recent years. So how did we get here? Where do we go?
If you're watching this video, this is the start of something major.
Welcome to WatchMojo's series, The Evolution of True Crime. In this episode, we'll be exploring the rise and fall and rise of the true crime genre. As we know, true crime in its various forms has been a staple of pop culture for hundreds of years. From 16th century sailors' ballads recounting gruesome murders to Netflix's latest miniseries, our morbid fascination with crime and brutality is pervasive.
This is the fall of a dynasty, it's a fall from grace.
There you are, scared for your life. It's either do or die.
But throughout the 2010s, true crime exploded into one of the most watched and most talked about media categories, elevated from trash TV and cozy mysteries into a cultural force.
Crime enthusiasts came from near and far for this year's CrimeCon.
WatchMojo published over 100 true crime videos in 2023 alone. But are viewers experiencing true crime fatigue? Are we over the serial killer cinematic universe? Where does the genre go from here? A 2022 study found 34% of American adults who listened to a podcast in the last year said they regularly consume true crime podcasts. The same study found that true crime was the most common topic between the highest-rated podcasts on Apple and Spotify.
I did listen to Serial and I loved it.
I'm on episode 5, maybe?
I'm halfway in.
Another 2022 study found that half of Americans admitted to enjoying true crime, with 13% citing it as their personal favorite.
Murder show, I'm gonna watch a murder show. Late night true crime, this is my relaxing time.
But with popularity comes greater scrutiny. The more a topic is discussed, the more viewers seek to unpack its nuances, like in this miniseries, for example. So let's talk about where true crime is at today. We can look back at landmark works like In Cold Blood and Thin Blue Line as benchmarks of modern true crime. But let's be serious. The true crime boom got real in the 2010s. As the streaming revolution began to take root, viewers and listeners started experiencing stories in new ways.
We are in no way crime journalists or professionals, really. We're talking about the case conversationally as people who have been paying attention for a long time.
For one, streaming makes content available to anyone with a password on their own schedule, expanding the potential viewer base considerably compared to traditional TV or film. Secondly, streaming is as much a part of online culture as it is visual media culture, thanks to the expansion of online fandoms and social media.
Unsolved Mysteries Volume 4, Episode 2, this just released yesterday on Netflix. There's just no way that was an accident. I don't know. What do you guys think?
The internet provides new possibilities for engaging with the stories we consume, especially if their focus is on a mystery. A mystery is a puzzle. It puts the viewer in a position to hunt for clues, to draw their own conclusions in real life. Who doesn't want to be the one to crack the case?
Did you make the bomb?
No.
Liar.
It's a bank robbery, but it's a scavenger hunt.
I did nothing.
Who actually said, hey, let's rob a bank?
We know how true crime media reflects the issues of its time. So what kind of widespread cultural questions can it generate in digital space? HBO's The Jinx is a great viral example. The series investigates the suspicious deaths of 3 individuals all connected to New York real estate heir Robert Durst. The show features a lot of self-reflexive moments, as filmmaker Andrew Jarecki explores his own working relationship with Durst, who's an active and willing participant in the production.
If she was dead, I would not know where her body would be in the state of New York or in the state of New Jersey or in the Northern Hemisphere or anything like that.
And the ending is absolutely explosive. This twisty, independent investigation ultimately helped lead to Durst's arrest and conviction in 2021. The internet was lit aflame by the series finale, some hailing it as one of the most shocking moments in TV history. But what is of note for us here is the discourse it generated in digital space. Fans carried topics that are usually limited to academia, such as body language analysis and objectivity in nonfiction storytelling, into the mainstream.
His tics are increasing. So that's showing that his anxiety is ramping up a little bit, his concern for what's happening. There's an issue here. That's an indicator of him lying at this point.
Making a Murderer is another example. This milestone series generated major discussions about mental health and criminal responsibility, documentary ethics, and bias in police work. Over 500,000 people signed an online petition to the White House in 2015, advocating for a pardon for central character Stephen Avery.
We're thankful that the story's finally out, the stuff that was shoved out of court.
Showed them that we're out here fighting for them and that their injustice won't go unnoticed.
These are not necessarily activists or people linked to the case, but viewers who were moved by what they saw in the show. And that is the true power of nonfiction storytelling. Viewers are made to feel as if they have the complete story, an encyclopedia of the facts. And in an online context, fans find themselves in a position to take some level of action, to post something, to join an advocacy group, to get active in a forum, to sign a petition, to feel as though they too can be a participant in the execution of justice.
Lambert began looking into what happened to Kristen, chasing down leads and tracking down anyone with information.
I didn't know how many people were going to listen, but I knew that I could try to do a small part.
Netflix's Don't F with Cats, Hunting an Internet Killer takes this concept even further. The series covers the internet sleuth-driven quest to identify an anonymous poster of animal cruelty videos, later identified as murderer Luca Magnotta. The core of this story is how random people online were able to identify this elusive figure, using clues from his videos.
Oh, that looks exactly like the Petro-Canada gas station that I see in the photo, Luca. And guess what? That large gray cement apartment building is directly behind it.
Modern true crime often questions the effectiveness of the criminal justice system, and this series empowers the independent PI roleplay that the internet makes possible. Anyone can be a detective, or even better than a detective, stepping in when the police can't do their job.
He was the journalist behind a podcast downloaded by millions that delved into Lynette Dawson's disappearance in 1982. It prompted new witnesses to come forward who've now testified in Chris Dawson's murder trial.
The internet allows viewers to themselves become part of the stories they consume. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, of course. The outcome of Don't F with Cats was positive, but this does mark an evolution. And what's interesting is how fresh technology brings new life to the content-consumer relationship in true crime, to the way audiences explore gruesome cases from a distance or try to crack a whodunit.
Her story and its mystery captivating the nation. Each new development being followed with clues and explainers by people on social media. Some actually helping detectives put the pieces together.
These are classic devices of mystery and true crime, but the internet allows consumers to dig far deeper into the nitty-gritty of the case at hand, easily accessing photos, archival documents, official reports, and bouncing ideas off other aficionados.
Her death was undoubtedly brutal. And now it seems like there is a shift happening with people saying that now that they've seen the crime scene photos, they don't believe that Dee Dee deserved that.
True crime fans now have far greater and deeper means to connect with it. This is inherently related to why we see a true crime explosion in this era. Podcasts are another tech innovation that contributes to this explosion. Radio may be somewhat passé, but the format makes content a hell of a lot more accessible when you're not planted in front of a screen. The podcast Serial, for example, is a major player in this true crime wave, an absolute phenomenon. The first podcast to win the Peabody Award, it holds a world record for the most downloaded podcast of all time.
They like complicated stories about complicated people who do complicated things.
Serial helped popularize true crime in podcast form, and its innovative storytelling kept viewers waiting with bated breath for the next reveal. This is another example of true crime being led by independent researchers, seeking to uncover problems with the system.
And I've done all the reporting around him, so tons of soldiers, friends and family, people in the State Department, White House, just sort of like all over the place to try to figure it out.
In the case of Adnan Syed, the central figure of season 1, Serial's popularity got absolutely everyone talking about his case, and the investigation ultimately helped change its outcome.
Now, a judge in the United States has quashed the murder conviction of an American man whose case gave rise to the true crime podcast Serial.
The Jinx, Making a Murderer, and Serial all debuted within about a year of each other. But let's talk about a different true crime sensation given life by streaming, Tiger King.
They can't find his body. Okay, we believe that she fed him to the tigers.
At a moment when everyone was suddenly stuck indoors, no work, no social life, Tiger King provided the exact niche story that could only be called comforting given the timing of its release, March 2020. This series has everything: Murder, conspiracy, illegal zoos, mullets. Its home on Netflix allowed for a nostalgic collective viewing experience. As everyone's lives were flipped, seemingly everyone was also watching Tiger King.
Well, I've devoured all 7 episodes and I'm still craving more. So we've gathered some of the key players for a look back at the twists and turns of the Tiger King saga.
The so-called streaming revolution has carried the new wave of true crime by expanding its viewer base and viewers' ability to immerse themselves in these stories from the comfort of their own homes, especially in 2020 when we were literally stuck there. But what are the downsides of this genre explosion in the digital age? It's important that we talk about victim experience here. Are the victims of true crime stories ever really done justice through their representation? And what about the surviving families of victims?
I did watch it. I felt it was over the top. They didn't need to present it the way that they did. I think it was insensitive for the way it was done. I think they glamorized it.
We've already seen how shows like Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, delve into the mystique of a murderer's mind. And yes, several of his victims are depicted in the show. But really, the series is not about them. Their identities, their lives, and the tragedy of their stories are not the center of the show. The focus remains on Dahmer himself. And so, there emerges a cycle of re-victimization, where the real-life victims are killed off for show, while the murderer gets a Netflix-backed famous actor deep dive.
I sort of started with a blank slate with Dahmer. I wanted it to be very authentic, but in order to do that, I was going to have to go to really dark places.
The real victims are just plot devices in Jeffrey Dahmer's show. While it's contested by creator Ryan Murphy,
we reached out to about 20 of the victims' families and friends, trying to get input, trying to talk to people, and not a single person responded to us in that process.
Multiple families of Dahmer's victims claim they were never contacted prior to the show airing in 2022.
And the way he told the movie and showed the movie and lied about him contacting us, he didn't contact none of us. And he said that he did. Ryan Murphy.
As Eric Perry, the cousin of Dahmer victim Errol Lindsay, said, quote, "We're all one traumatic event away from the worst day of your life being reduced to your neighbor's favorite binge show." A point of opposition to this dynamic could be the 2017 Netflix series The Keepers, which covered the unsolved murder of Sister Kathy Sesnick in 1969 and a web of abuse in her Baltimore community. The series featured interviews with her students who were themselves victims of abuse at school and allowed them to tell the story through their own experiences, keeping Kathy at the core.
They both knew that I was walking down the hallway to hell. And but then I think of Sister Kathy and I think, well, maybe they were scared to death that he was going to kill them.
This created space for Kathy's story to be told without re-victimizing those involved and sensationalizing their trauma for profit. The narrative belongs to them and is recounted from their perspectives. And this is really the core ethical concern of true crime writ large. Is it fair to survivors of these tragedies to have their private lives and intimate family moments aired on TV? Mindy Pendleton, stepmother of Robert Mast, who was murdered in 2015, recounted begging the producers of Netflix's I Am a Killer to not feature their story. The episode aired without her permission or participation and featured his murderer detailing her side of the story. The episode was not about Robert, but about his killer through a lens of curiosity.
I made the choice. I took his life, and there's nothing I can do to undo it.
Victims' families have also cited the traumatizing effects of having their killed loved ones' lifestyle, decisions, risks, relationships, and so forth scrutinized in the public eye by armchair detectives with no real connection to the case.
This victim-blaming notion, what did the woman do to bring this upon herself? What did she wear? Why did she put herself in that position?
And this is an age-old question in nonfiction media. What responsibility do we have to the truth? What responsibility do we have to the real-life people and events we cover? There isn't really such a thing as pure truth in media, because what viewers are shown is filtered through so many layers of perception. The lens always omits more than it captures, regardless of a filmmaker's intentions.
You think that you know me as a person because you've watched my documentaries. You've read articles, you've done your research, but you don't know me as just Gypsy.
But true crime continues to push these boundaries for better or worse. A prime example is Monster and its deeply aestheticized telling of tragic historical events. Some viewers praised its vision and performances.
It's a testament to Evan Peters' performance. He's a remarkable actor.
Others criticized its potentially glorifying effect.
They either go way over the top or they're glamorizing the killer.
Can the series just exist as entertainment? Or should there be a higher bar for sensitivity and historical accuracy? It depends who you ask. But given the enduring presence of true crime across hundreds of years, it's clear the genre is here to stay. It will continue to evolve in line with the changing social concerns of its time. And perhaps given the sheer volume of formats and platforms available today, we can expect it to expand in different directions, serving a broad range of tastes. All things will find their fandom.
Such a good form of escapism right now. I feel like it's so ridiculous, it's so outrageous.
With that being said, the ethics of true crime remain up for debate and deeply subjective. We've seen how true crime can reflect biases in our society and, in turn, influence viewers' perception of the issues it covers. Rather than focusing on the unattainable bar of truth, perhaps the better measure here is honesty.
So we have tried to surround ourselves with as many experts as we could. The story we're telling is a story about humanity, about sacrifice, about friendship, people who find each other in the darkest hours and walk towards the light together.
Does the creator tell us the limits of their research? Does the content polarize characters into good guys and bad guys? Who are you made to identify with in the story? Then again, if you're just along for the ride and want to enjoy a juicy mystery, that's okay too. We're all fans here. But at the end of the day, it's important to keep in mind that these juicy mysteries were not just written to entertain us. They are the stories of real people who lived through very real events, and they could happen to you too. Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.